As you may or may not know if you've been following my channel at all, or if you're new here, what's up? Hi. We're on the Rust arc. I'm going to be learning Rust. It's been years now that I've been writing in Go, and it's finally time for me to branch out, try something new. I've tried Haskell, I've tried Elm. I've really wanted to be a functional programming girly, but I think that Rust is just a very pragmatic choice in this day and age. And it's something that I've seen a lot of cool things happening in that ecosystem. A lot of cool projects have been popping up that all seem to be written in Rust. And it's something that's been on my learning list for a while. I want to understand what all the hype is about. So we are jumping into it. I'm sharing all of this on my live streams. I will be actually coding and doing all of the learning exercises, everything during the live streams that happen on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. Wednesdays and Thursdays are the coding days. Monday is more of a sit down. We study together. I'm going to be probably reading my algorithms books and or other technical books that will help accelerate my learning journey. All of this kind of stems from feeling like I had unmet potential in previous years, and I want to really push myself to be a better developer this year. So this is the learning plan for Rust. And if you have any thoughts, tips, tricks, anything that you want to share it with the class, okay? Put it in the comments. I do read the comments, even if I don't have time to respond to all of them. I very much appreciate them, and I do actually read them. So let's jump into it. So the first thing that I want to do is get comfortable with the language. Of course, I need to understand syntax. I need to understand Rust has a fairly unique language design, meaning it has a lot of guardrails, it has a lot of opinions, which personally I really like in a programming language, so I'm down for that. But that also means that it's going to require a lot of reading up front, and I have already started my journey with this, and I've mostly been using the JetBrains Academy. This is not sponsored by JetBrains. This is just a tool that I came across that came highly recommended for its interactivity. So basically what they've done is they've taken the Rust programming language book and Rustlings project, and they've turned that into a course that you can take through your IDE. And what I really like about this format so far is that they're basically walking you through the chapters on the right, and they're kind of explaining the new concepts to you, all of that stuff. And then you're also seeing an actual example usage of what they're talking about. And in each section, there's at least one task that gets completed that you do in your IDE, and it will test it, make sure that it passes. And if not, you can also compare your solution with the authors. So I've actually found it very engaging, very easy to follow. And I've already gone over ownership and stuff. They plant those seeds pretty early on, and I haven't found it too crazy or complicated, but I could understand how some people could find it confusing if they're maybe just looking at kind of written formats and not a ton of smaller scoped problems that they're solving along the way. So honestly, so far it's been a great experience. My only thing is that my trial is running out this week. So I am kind of speed running, finishing JetBrains Academy. So that is step one, is getting comfortable with the language. While I'm doing that, I want to start thinking about different project ideas. So I'm going to give some different smaller project ideas, and I'm going to hold off on spilling the beans on any of the larger projects that I potentially want to work on. But I am anticipating, so to me, what gets categorized as a larger project is going to be some set of tooling or technology that I'm completely unfamiliar with, where I'm going to have to dive into the documentation for that thing and understand the specifications for how that thing works, kind of backtrack from there and figure out how to translate that programmatically. So I'll probably be looking at a lot of different open source code bases that already do something similar, try to understand that source code, probably leverage AI to help me understand some of those implementations in plain English to make it a little bit less cognitively intensive to try and understand what those code bases are doing and why they've done the certain design decisions that they have. I'll also probably just be referencing any kind of documentation around that specific protocol, an example being a live chat server. If I want to implement something like that, I'm going to have to figure out, okay, what kind of protocol do I want to be using for that? Basically what's available. When I decide on one of those, I need to kind of understand how that protocol works. So just kind of there's going to be layers to it beyond just implementing the thing with code, which I think is just a very common practice. That is a big part of software development, is also the research component of it. So we're going to be doing that. And then I also want to be doing smaller projects throughout. So those I will share today, and basically throughout, I'm going to try to start brainstorming some different ideas for the larger project, begin researching some of the underlying tech for that thing, play around with that. And then hopefully after a month, once I'm a lot more familiar with Rust, then I can actually start kind of taking the first steps on that larger project. But again, I'm anticipating the scope for this larger project to be quite big. So it might even be like a 6-month, year-long project that I'm working on. It'll be nice to have a more complex, honestly kind of intimidating project, and then also have smaller things that you're completing along the way that kind of keep your momentum going and keep you from feeling too stagnant. That is the goal. My main goal, so we're now in the first week of April, we're coming into the second week of April. I'm filming this on the 7th. So this week, including tomorrow, Thursday, we're in the JetBrains Academy, getting familiar with everything, the ins and outs of the language. I do also want to create maybe 1 or 2 smaller projects. It'd be nice to be able to apply some of what I've learned right away or as soon as possible so that it doesn't just, leave forever. That is the goal. And then I'm thinking at the end of the month, it could be very fun to maybe do a longer live stream or maybe more of a recapped, condensed version just for YouTube that is writing an interpreter in Rust. So this would be based off of Thorsten Ball's book that is writing an interpreter in Go and effectively translating that into a Rust implementation. I think that would be a really interesting project to try, and I'm sure somebody else has probably attempted it. A main goal of mine is that for a lot of these projects, it's pretty much something that has already been implemented that I can then use as reference if I get stuck, so I can unblock myself. I am anticipating not having to get super blocked though during this journey because again, there's AI now that can unblock you fairly quickly if I am stuck on a specific problem or I'm out of my depth and don't quite know what the next step would normally be. It's really good for unblocking that stuff, so I'm not too concerned. But yeah, writing an interpreter in Rust would be kind of fire at the end of April. And then in May, it would be unreal to be able to do 1 smaller project a week. As somebody who chronically overcommits, I might make it 1 smaller project every 2 weeks, just in case, to allow for life to happen. Maybe aim for 2 to 3 projects launched in May. And then this is when I would actually start working on that larger project and doing some of that research as well. And then at the end of the month, that might be where we do the second book of Thorsten Ball's, which is writing a compiler in Go, and we can do the Rust edition for that. And then I think June, I'll go all in on the bigger project and really start to try and challenge myself, where at this point, I am hopefully more familiar with the syntax of Rust and what it means to write idiomatic Rust code. And I've probably already run into all of those crazy errors that I could possibly run into, or at least I'll have some confidence recovering from a good number of those that I'll feel good about doing a larger project. But June, I'll be all in on that and maybe doing 1 smaller project as well. And then I'm not too sure what the summer is going to look like yet, but that is kind of the plan for the next few months. And I think that that'll be a really solid start. So I'm excited about that. And now let me share a little bit about my philosophy for what the smaller projects mean. So these are notes that I just wrote down the other day, but generally I'll be porting existing projects to Rust so that I can block myself fairly quickly. AI will also be helpful for unblocking myself, getting feedback on my code as a solo developer. It will, however, only be used in moderation because the goal here is still learning. And I think that getting your reps in is really important. So I have to find some small enough scoped projects that I can use as a reference in the open source space. So I'm going to have to try and come up with some ideas and see if somebody's already implemented that or look at some of the Rustaceans that I follow and see if they've been working on some small enough projects that I could try and use as a reference. I could also probably look at the pool of open source Go projects and try and carry those over to Rust. That could all be interesting. But some of the ideas that I'm having for again, beginner projects basically in Rust is this USA translator is pretty much the simplest thing that I could think of, which is you type in a sentence that you would say that would include something in Celsius, something in grams, whatever. And then you convert it to ounces and Fahrenheit and all of that stuff. So a little USA translator would be a nice easy one. maybe a snake game, remaking one of the GNU packages, because those follow the Unix philosophy, which means they're generally quite small in scope. I was thinking doing a symlink manager could be kind of fun, because I am a GNU Stow user, and that is something that I'm kind of curious about and would like to learn more about, is like symlinks. I don't know why, I just think it's kind of interesting. There's a little like seed that's been planted in my brain for like cool file operation things we can do. Live chat server, I don't know why that's in small project. I think that's more of like a medium-sized project. I don't think it's quite as big as what I'm thinking for a large project. Potentially an invoice generator or something else that could be useful for freelancers. This will require a certain amount of research into like financial software and understanding how invoices get numbered and generated and generally organized in larger systems, so that you could have it automatically generate invoice numbers and like make sure that it would be actually useful. But I know that Moss, who is back in open source contributions, Moss I worked with at Charm for a long time, and he's back to his open source shenanigans, which is super exciting. But he has a command line invoice generator creator. So maybe I'll take a look at some of his source code for that and try and find some inspiration there. I will link his GitHub in the description as well, by the way. I thought that this would be kind of a cool project as well, is this Easy Share, which is file share over a local network. Basically mine would probably just be like command line, where you pretty much just do like this, copy this file to this machine. And I'm sure there's already some way to do this, but we're gonna try and make programs, okay? I might just try and copy their source code over to Rust and see what happens. Okay, and then Sudoku solver, because I'm an avid Sudoku player, but again, I don't know if I need to be getting caught up with backtracking algorithms in Rust. I don't know if I need to do that to myself yet, you know? Here was a little blog post that I found about building a live chat server with Redis and Rust for a scalable chat. So that's something I'll probably look into. And again, this is going to fall into some of the like research stage of some of these ideas. What else do I have? Ooh, larger project. So for the larger project, you can think of it as almost a capstone project. And the goal is that we're going to be really pushing ourselves in terms of difficulty. I don't know why I'm saying we, because I'm the only one committing to any of this, but you're welcome to follow along. You're welcome to commit to it alongside me. I do think that AI makes it a lot easier if you do end up getting stuck and or you are completely out of your depth and you're like, I don't know what a system would even look like. In this case, like for me, I feel like I get stuck on like, I've heard of a lot of these different protocols. I don't know how it would fit in with this kind of system, you know? Which probably means that I need to study more like systems design stuff. I don't know. You can tell me. You can backseat. It's fine. I'm thinking maybe even a desktop or mobile application. I saw like Tori is supposed to be a good thing, compatible with Rust to build like desktop applications. I have a lot of ideas. I'm not quite sure exactly like which specific ideas I want to share yet, because might have some idea that I want to like do more with. That might be more of a SaaS solution. And you know, with all vibe coding things going on in the world right now, I don't know, I might gatekeep that a little bit and keep that to myself. But I do think there are some larger projects as well that I can totally share online that I think would be really fun to work on together during the live streams. And I was checking out this iced package that looks super cool. This one is a cross-platform GUI library for Rust that is Elm inspired, which is totally up my alley. So this has support for Windows, macOS, Linux, and the web, which is very interesting. And it has a very simple, easy to use API. So this gets me excited because I'm like, ooh, I can maybe build out some fun, cool GUIs with iced. That is in fact the plan. If you want to stay up to date on all of the Rust journey that I'm doing right now, you can subscribe. Let me know in the comments and give this video a like if you do enjoy this kind of more candid update on the Rust journey. I'm going to try and just keep you all updated on the learning process. Thank you very much for your support. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.